So we have with us Rod Jones. He is President and CEO of the CSL Group. CSL Group is a large corporation based in Montreal, headquartered in Montreal. Rod, would you tell us a little bit about your career within CSL, how you got to become the leader of this group?
Well, I've been at CSL since 1985. And I originally joined, I had some international shipping experience before I came to the company. I'd worked for a Dutch company, Van Almeren, and before that I worked for Navios Corporation, which is a U.S. Steel shipping subsidiary. But after I left U.S. Steel, or Navios, I went to get an MBA, and I kind of made the decision. You know, most of my friends were all going into investment banking and consulting and all these high-paying jobs, but I decided that I really loved the shipping industry, and so I wanted to kind of make a business career in shipping. And I joined CSL because one of the things I learned in business school, which I hadn't realized before, was that you needed to have a strategy that gave you a long-term competitive advantage over everybody else in order to survive over the long term. And I kind of looked around the world and tried to figure out which shipping companies I thought could develop a long-term strategy, a competitive advantage where they would be able to sort of outlast their, and it wasn't just a question of making good buy and sell decisions, which you can do that right for 10 years and do it wrong in the 11th year and you're sort of out of business. I wanted to be able to have something that was more sustainable than that. And I really liked, CSL was at the time just starting to take the self-unloading technology outside of the Great Lakes and see what they could do with it. And I liked that story. I liked the concept of trying to be the number one in a small segment of shipping rather than number 75 in a huge segment. And so basically at that time Paul Martin had just taken over the company, and it was his vision to go international, and that's why they basically were looking for someone like myself who had some international experience, and it just turned out really well. CSL was dabbling in international shipping then, but we were doing it from Montreal. And in 1991 they made the decision that, look, this is getting significant enough, we want to set up the international part of our business, the non-Canadian flag business, outside of Canada, and focus on that and really try to grow that side of the business. So I moved down with a small team of people in 92, or early 92 I think, to Boston, and we set up CSL International. At the time we had 5 employees and 3 ships and 2 customers, and basically over the next 20 years we really grew that to be a very substantial investment and force in international shipping. Or CSL Group owns 2 operating companies: Canada Steamship Lines, which is the Canadian flag shipping company headquartered in Montreal, and then it owns CSL International, which is all the non-Canadian flag business, which is basically headquartered in Beverly, Massachusetts. Okay. And I was running that business for 20 years or 18 years or so, and it was only in 2008 when my predecessor as the CEO retired that I moved back to Montreal to become the CEO of the whole group. Up until then I'd only been responsible for the international business.
The self-unloading business, it's a niche market. Do you find that the fluctuations of rates and earnings of these vessels are similar to what you see in the, let's say, the non-niche market?
Well, the directions are similar. Hopefully, though, what we try to do is in the markets that we're in, we're trying to, because we have long-term contracts and long-term relationships with our customers, we try to smooth the highs and the lows. So basically, if you recall back in 2006-07, bulk carriers, just plain old bulk carriers, were earning $50,000 to $100,000 a day, and we were not. We were still earning kind of our self-unloader returns. Now those same ships are earning $6,000 a day, and their operating costs are $7,000, so they're losing $1,000 a day. But we're not earning what we were earning, but we're earning more than that. We're still making a contribution to our operating costs, which many shipping companies aren't. So, but we're not immune. As markets go up or down, customers get in more trouble. They're looking for reasons to do it. We certainly have had to react to the market, but I would say we've dampened some of those swings compared to most other players because of being in niche markets.
Right, and you've got the new Trillium class vessels now, 2 of them I believe operating in the Great Lakes.
Well, 3 have delivered to us now from China, but only 1 is so far in the Great Lakes. The other 2 are on their way. Okay, so it takes 2 months or almost 2 months to get over here from China. So we're anxiously waiting for those 2 ships to arrive.
And the vessel that's operating here, is it operating to your satisfaction so
far?
We're
thrilled. We're thrilled with it. It's it's one of the things I like to say around CSL is that we've been operating these type ships for 50 or more years, And we've made every single mistake you can make in running a self-unloader over those 50 years. And what we've tried to do is incorporate all of those lessons into these new ships. Now, we're actually finding that even though they're fantastic ships, there's always a few things we'd like to do differently. So those hopefully will get incorporated into the next series of ships, but they're really good. Certainly the cargo and loading systems are incredible. You can, some of our customers need us to discharge at 4,027 tons an hour. We can dial this thing down to just be absolutely what they need. It used to be that we kind of hit it, but we'd go too much into the hopper and then we'd have to slow down and you're kind of going back and forth. Now we've got so much more flexibility and control in these new ships than we've ever had before.
So the Trillium class, one operating, 3 on the way, and you have 2 more bulk carriers coming as well, I believe.
Yeah, we got two more gearless bulk carriers which will deliver in 2014. Yeah.
How is the overall experience being building vessels in China?
Look, it's a challenge. The Chinese are the #1 shipbuilding country in the world, and they're very good at it. But what we've learned. CSL has been building in China since 1996. So many of our international fleet were built in China. When many people send their teams over to build in China, they'll have a supervision team of 4 people. Well, for our 11 ship order, we've got 55 people in China. So what we've learned is that they can build very good ships, but we need a very close partnership between the shipyard and our supervision team to make sure that happens. And there's 2 things about CSL ships that are different for the shipyard than anything they've ever done before. One is it's a self-unloader, and CSL knows more about self-unloaders than the shipyard does, and so we make sure that they build those ships well. And second, they're Lakers, and so the shipyard's never built to Laker scantlings before. It's 50% scantlings. There's all sorts of different rules and regulations that Transport Canada requires that the shipyard's not used to because other countries are different. So our supervision team really has to make sure that they build good Lakers, and that's what our team does there.
And where do you see CSL Group go from here in the next 5 years? Steady as she goes, or do you see any particular growth areas for CSL?
Well, CSL is a private company, and so we don't really disclose our strategies and our financial statements and things like that. But I guess there's a couple things I can tell you. I mean, CSL considers it our mission to sort of bring these Canadian, basically the self-unloading technology that was basically developed in Canada, not by us, but by other partners and people we deal with, to the world, and we think we've got a very, very good platform for doing that. So basically our strategy is to take advantage of the platforms we already have and continue to take advantage of whatever opportunities we can find. Unfortunately, right now, most of our market segments are all struggling, and it's our customers who are struggling. So if our customers are struggling, we're sort of struggling, and so I'd say there's a lot of uncertainty about when some of the growth trends that were there in the past will resume, and so we have to be patient. We are taking the opportunity to get rid of some of our less efficient older capacity, and so we have scrapped some ships in our European operation recently, and we scrapped a couple ships in Canada, and we're looking at that in Australia. So there's an evolution which is going on, and when we pull the trigger on some of these future investments remains to be seen.
We've seen in the container trade mega vessels being built, the Triple E being built now by Maersk, which has an onward effect on ports development and ports becoming more transition points, with the smaller, still very large container vessels feeding other ports that used to be main ports. Do you see parallels in that in your industry, in the bulk industry?
It's a little different. I mean, there's huge changes going on in our industry too, but they're different changes than in the container industry. The big one in our industry is eco ships, and so there is in each of the major classes, Cape-size ships and what's now known as Newcastle Max ships, which are big capes basically, and all these various sizes. There's a whole new generation of ships that are coming out that burn 5 to 10 tons less fuel than their counterparts that were built just 5 years ago. And so, the expectation in our industry anyway is that there will be a much earlier obsolescence of some of those older ships than was previously seen. So that's there's a big debate at every shipping conference about whether that's really happening or not. But I think certainly something along those lines is. The other big thing that's sort of interesting, and we haven't really figured out what's going to be its impact yet, is the new Panama Canal. Which is allow there's this class of ship that's very famous in the world called Panamax ships, which are the maximum size ships that can go through the Panama Canal. Well, now those are much bigger, but it's going to take a while before we really understand the impact of that, because it's not just the Panama Canal that was limiting the size of the ships. Many of the ship loaders were designed to load those sorts of ships. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly ports, reconvert in order to take advantage of that. So I think that the bigger than Panamax, they're called Camsar Maxes or Baby Capes. A lot of people have been investing in those ships recently because they think there will be an impact, but it hasn't happened yet, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly it does.